Life According to Dyllan by Dyllan Hoffman. An introduction of sorts. The title of this chapter may spark a number of questions in your mind. What does this have to do with leadership? What makes Dyllan an expert on life? Who even is Dyllan? Why did they let him write a chapter in this book? These are all valid questions that may or may not be answered through the course of this chapter. It's my hope that at the end of this chapter I can give some insight into my perspective of life, some tips on living, and how this can positively influence you and those around you. And while some may find this chapter stirring, revitalizing, and inspirational, others may find it incredibly bleak, drab, and pointless. Nevertheless, my advice is guaranteed 100% correct and life-altering, so no refunds. Part 1. Shit happens. You can't control life. Oh, yeah, I may cuss periodically through these paragraphs. So, if you are currently reading this book about professional leadership and athletic training to your children, not judging, or have some strong convictions about foul language, just wanted to give you a heads up. When I was 7, my mother took my cousin and I to SeaWorld in San Antonio. My mother is a roller coaster fanatic, and it just so happens that SeaWorld San Antonio is home to the Steel Eel, at the time a brand new roller coaster with a 150-foot initial drop. Now, it was just the 3 of us at SeaWorld that day, and so there was no one to watch us while she rode the ride. So, my mother decided it was time for my cousin and I to grow up and ride it with her. Now, I know I was not the shortest 7-year-old at the park that day, but the 90s must have had some really lax roller coaster height restrictions and or a ride operator who didn't give a damn because they let me and my younger cousin hop right on in the seat behind my mother. To make matters worse, all the ride had at the time was a single belt that went around the waist to secure you in the ride. And the cherry on top, that belt did not tighten enough for the 6 and 7-year-olds it was supposed to hold. And so the ride started. We began our ascent to the top, and as we got to the peak and the first car leaned over the edge, my cousin and I bunkered down into our seats, holding on to the belt and handlebars as hard as a young Dyllan could. The coaster roared down the 150-foot drop as my body wanted to float away into the stratosphere. Then it happened. I had held on and used whatever part of the seatbelt I could to keep myself secured within the ride. But then we hit the bottom. You know the feeling. It's when your stomach goes from your throat to your loins, and you feel as if your body will sink straight through the crust of the earth and into hell. Well, it was enough for me to pull down right through that seatbelt and into the floor of the roller coaster. Yep, shit happens. Now, you're probably on the edge of your seat to know how a young Dyllan survived this moment to be able to write this chapter today. Do not fret, I'll get to that. But if we want to know my outlook on life, we cannot ignore what happened to this point of a 7-year-old child lying on the floor, completely unstrapped on a moving roller coaster. The truth is that this story is a perfect analogy of the mess that is life. Sure, I can look back and point at factors that led to this, but as a 7-year-old kid, you really don't have much say. Sometimes your mom puts you on a roller coaster you probably shouldn't ride. Sometimes a ride operator doesn't do his job very well. Sometimes equipment malfunctions. The same can be said in athletic training. Sometimes your patient doesn't get better. Sometimes your job sucks. Sometimes you don't have the right equipment. Sometimes people are dicks. It's inevitable that shit will happen to you at some point in your life. And maybe that is you today. Maybe you are stuck on a roller coaster without a seatbelt. If not now, you have probably been there before. And it is a guarantee you will be there again. One of my favorite sayings is that life is like a log floating down a river. You don't have much choice in the matter. This is not to discourage you. It's simply a matter of fact. And once you get this, you can take advantage of parts 2 and 3. Part 2. You can damn sure try. So here I am, heading back up the next hill of a roller coaster without a seatbelt. I can't make the ride stop, jump off, or travel in time to never get on the thing in the first place. So instead, I improvise. I slide under the seat and grab a hold of every bar or bolt I can reach. I couldn't control it, but I could damn sure try to survive it. And that's what I did. I rode that Steel Eel like a reincarnation of Lane Frost himself for what felt like an eternity until we rolled back into the station and I could slide back up into my seat like I'd never left it. If you do not get the Lane Frost reference, please stop now, go watch 8 seconds, educate yourself on the greatest cowboy to ever live, and then you may resume the chapter. You cannot control life, but you can control you. Now, this idea of being the author of your own life may not be a novel one. It's pretty much the topic of most self-help books these days. But damn it if we don't struggle with it. Probably because you never had Dyllan Hoffman around to help you. So how can I control myself personally and professionally in an uncontrollable life? Luckily, I have a 3-pronged approach for that. First, be adaptable. How the hell do you think we got this far as a species? We have no natural fur to keep us warm, we're not fast enough to escape most predators, and contrary to popular belief, I have lived long enough to know there are plenty of unintelligent people in the world. So how have we made it? It's because we are adaptable. One of my best friends lost his arm in a meat production incident in the 2nd grade. I do not say this to invoke your pity for him or set up a hilarious sausage-related joke. I say this because it wasn't what life threw at him that is important. It's how he has adapted since. He learned to rewrite left-handed. He figured out a way to be a 2-year starting center on a state championship football team. Today, that one-armed son of a bitch can fix your engine, craft you a custom leather holster from scratch, and pick guitar better than most two-handed cowboys out there. And I'll be the first to admit that I admire and am inspired by his ability to adapt. You can have this effect in your own organization. Patient not liking your care plan? Be adaptable. Supervisor not giving you the resources you need? Be adaptable. As I've drilled already, a lot of things will be out of your control. But if you can adapt and find a way to make lemonade without lemons, you will be successful. And more importantly, others will look up to you as a model of how to make the best in any situation. You will be on your way to becoming the leader of this book is trying to make you to be. Second, be creative. But Dyllan, I'm not a creative person. I say bullshit. Everyone has the capability for creativeness. It's the unique gift we all have just by being human. Now, perhaps life has not fostered that creativity the way it should have. Maybe your parents didn't play Mozart for you while you were still in the womb. Or maybe your middle school art teacher told you that your painting sucked. And you've carried that with you into adulthood. I already told you I don't care about what life has thrown at you. All I care is what you do from this exact moment on. Part of being creative is first being brave. Or not giving a crap. Definitely one of the two. Either way, creativity should be something you try daily. Write a song. Carve a soap sculpture. Make your own recipe. Yes, it is probably going to suck, but that's okay. Creativity is the action, not the result. Be willing to try new things. Practice thinking outside the box. Bring an innovative idea to your superior or coworker. If they shoot it down, adapt and make another. Keep pedaling the bike and eventually you will go somewhere. You want to be a leader, practice being creative. Inspire yourself and inspire others. A bold creator is a bold leader. Finally, the third prong of how to steer your raft down the river is to be authentic. You may be reading this book and even this chapter thinking, if I can be more like this guy Dyllan, I can be the athletic trainer, leader, and person I've always wanted to be. If so, stop that right now. You will never be me. That is just a fact. But I will also never be you. That should be a beautiful thought, that we are all unique little snowflakes, beautiful in our own individual way. But the sad truth about our world is so many people go through it pretending to be someone else. Instead of being actors on the world stage, wouldn't it be better if we were each our own play, written, directed, and acted by ourselves? So, you brave little thespian, try it out now. Stop looking at others and look into yourself. Who are you? Who are you trying to be? Really sit with this. Pour a glass of bourbon, light up a cigar, and ponder what your authentic self looks like. If you've never done this before, I will warn you it might be scary. We hide from our authenticity so often we forget how to find ourselves. Usually we hide because we're terrified of how we may be perceived. And I get it. Your authentic self is probably pretty weird. I'm pretty weird too, but people adore me. So stop trying to hide your little inner weirdo behind some empty, perfect facade. Search deep, find yourself, and break those chains that have been holding you there. When you do, I promise you will notice an immediate effect. You might turn green, triple in size, and start smashing stuff, but more than likely, you will find people emulate you more. If it is a choice between Taco Bell and authentic Mexican cuisine, people will choose the authenticity. We do the same when we look for leaders. So, when the shit show of life deals you a bad hand, be adaptable, be creative, and be authentic. By doing these 3 steps, you will not only overcome a lot of perceived obstacles, it will set you up for success, even when you fail. And as strange as that sounds, it will prepare you for the final part of my advice. Part 3, joy over happiness. When I became a football state champion, I was happy. When I was accepted into the West Texas All-Decade team, I was happy. When I won $10 on a $2 scratch-off, I was happy. When I was accepted into the doctorate and athletic training program at Indiana State, I was happy. When I married my wife, I was happy. When I was drunk off tequila, floating in a lazy river on a resort in Cancun, I was happy. But here's the kick. When I realized I would never play football again, I was depressed. When I saw the photo that was used for my all-decade profile, I was humiliated. When I lost $500 gambling in a random casino in Indiana, I was furious. When I realized how difficult the Indiana State DAT program was, I was disheartened. When I had my first fight with my wife, I was fearful. And when I woke up the next morning in Mexico with a pounding headache and had to fly back home and hop on a Zoom call for the DAT meeting before the week was over, I was regretful. See, the problem with happiness is that it's fleeting. Happiness is an emotion driven by external circumstances and brought on through a complex rush of chemicals in your head. But going through life in pursuit of unending happiness is a fool's game. Now, do not get me wrong. I am all for the Founding Fathers' vision of a right to pursue happiness, and the Will Smith movie was pretty good as well. But it is always just that, a pursuit. Happiness is not eternal. It's here one minute and gone the next, replaced with another emotion. Lucky for you, I have a better solution. Seek joy. And no, joy is not synonymous with happiness. As I said earlier, happiness is a temporary emotion that is dependent on our circumstances and replaced easily with other feelings. Joy is a constant feeling of peace that is internal and can be constantly nurtured. You can still have joy even when you are sad, angry, fearful, anxious, and more. Joy is not dependent on your situation. It is a sense of peace, comfort, acceptance, and goodness that follows you through the day. Think about someone you admire, someone who you feel at peace with every time you're around them. I'm willing to bet they are not always happy. Just like everyone else, they will have bad days. But nevertheless, you feel some level of peace and joy in their presence. You look forward to their company and look up to them in whatever role in your life. That feeling is joy, and it is contagious. When you contain joy internally, it will radiate to those around you. There's no better quality of an effective leader than to bring a constant joy to the organization you lead. Now, cultivating joy within yourself is not always easy, but there are plenty of ways to plant that seed and water it daily. For me, I find joy through my faith and regular prayer, but I also find it when I am sitting along a riverbank with a fishing rod in my hand. I find it on my long commute home after work when it's just me, the radio, and the soothing sound of traffic. Look for joy in those moments of solitude. Meditate, reflect, and seek the joy that is hiding inside you. Once you find it, let it spread to everyone around you. But what if your life really sucks right now? How do you dig through anger, pain, envy, depression, and more to find joy when life keeps slapping you in the face? Well, if you have been paying attention during this chapter, I already told you, life is going to suck. Shit is going to happen. But if you can be the kind of person who adapts to adversity with creativity and authenticity, You can find peace in your actions and joy in your life. I cannot promise the outcomes will always be great. If you live the way I'm talking about, you might find happiness in the results, but you will find joy in the journey. Bringing it all back home. So that is it. Dyllan's insight into life. And just in case you decided to skip all the good parts and go straight to this last section, assuming I would just give you a great conclusion, this is for you, a person after my own heart. First, accept that life is pretty much out of your control. Then, control the only thing you can, yourself. Adapt to changes, be creative in your approach, and don't try to be anyone other than yourself. Do this in your life, and people will want to follow you. You will be the kind of leader who is able to look at a situation, identify what is in and out of your control, and then find creative and authentic ways to adapt to the challenge. Your coworkers, patients, and organization will be better for it. Those are the rules for leadership. If you accept these rules, you can have a life filled with joy. And if having a joyful life isn't enough for you, some people are just never satisfied. Know that when you live a life of joy, you can inspire others. You can foster joy within your friends and family. You can foster joy in your workplace. Hell, you can foster joy in your bi-weekly men's knitting club if you damn well wish. The point is that finding joy in the crazy shit show of an existence is what's really important in leadership and life. And if you disagree, well, shit sucks because there are no refunds.